Hello, listeners, and welcome back to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, a podcast by three gauchos who love to discuss intellectual material and share it to the world. This week, we'll be sharing our opinions on George Orwell's 1984, Control, Manipulation, and Behaviors of Dominance.
So, what is your guys' opinion on Control? Do you believe it's good, bad, ugly?
I think a lot of ideas Orwell incorporated in this novel could easily be mirrored into today's society. Controlling anyone is ethically wrong, but there are some ideas that I kind of see in the near future for our current society. Looking back at 1984, call me crazy, but I believe George Orwell was onto something huge. I believe this man was close to answering the question of whether or not utopian society is even plausible. I mean, come on. Orwell literally predicted the invention of AirPods in the future, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in 1984, there are a number of aspects regarding control in society that, if executed correctly, could result in a utopia. But I think Orwell's intent in writing the novel was to show how humans are flawed and how a utopia is unattainable at the end of the day. After all, one of his main intentions was to, quote-unquote, make political writing into an art. I think that Orwell was warning future generations of the dangers of too much power in the hands of the government. Being the flawed creatures humans are, I think 1984 demonstrates how crucial it is to combat control and manipulation.
Well, I believe control is another form of manipulation, and manipulation in all sense is something horrible. Forcing someone to do something they don't want to do just so one person can gain something from it is just a messed up thing to do to anybody. Think about it. Forcing someone to do your bidding is like some supervillain shit. They don't care about what happens to the hero as long as they get what they need to get done. Orwell may have predicted the invention of AirPods, but that's kind of a shot in the dark. Who in the past would think that there would be a mobile library in their pocket that would play music and you can listen through wireless earplugs? If I was in his time of 1949, I would look at Orwell and be like, this boy's whack. But anyways, don't force people or whatever for your gain. That's just kind of screwed up to be that selfish.
Most people see it at one-sided all the time. People see control and manipulation and are instantly like, nope, not doing that. Of course, I'm not saying manipulation and controlling others is good. However, if we focus not on the manipulation of others, but instead on how the government influences and controls its people instead, I believe we can come together and agree there is easily some benefits here from 1984 in the end of the day. I truly like the idea of a utopian society through heavy influence from the government. Not physical influence, but rather proven psychological influence from the government on its people.
What do you mean by that? The psychological influence from the government?
For instance, in Professor Park's class, we went over a journal article that I found rather interesting. I'm talking about the dominance behavioral system in psychopathology journal article. The article is huge, dude, but when we went over it in class, I instantly read a quote that related to 1984 and the idea of control. The journal article stated that dominance can be negative, but, quote-unquote, dominance coupled with warmth can take pro-social forms, such as alliance formation, cooperation, reciprocal resource exchange, engagement in high-status behaviors, leadership, and persuasion. When I read this, I was like, wait a minute. Not only did this give us a reason on why the control from the 1984 government failed, but even provided us with a solution.
Even so, in 1984, they used thought policing and manipulation as a method of control. When they were explaining the inter-party government's workings, they said, all beliefs, habits, tastes, emotions, mental attitudes that characterize our time are really designed to sustain the mystique of the party and prevent the true nature of present-day society from being perceived. This quote basically explained how the inner party worked to make people's beliefs, habits, opinions, and any other characteristic thought and ability not their own. They controlled them in basically every way possible, just so they could call this a so-called utopia. Controlling people's every moves and thought does not give people the chance to make their own decisions and grow as a person. They become someone who just falls into line, dehumanizing the person in the process. Like how we learned in Professor Park's lecture, the I-it relationship is when one person treats the other like an object. In this case, the government is treating their own civilian as an object through control, and it's just unfair and a horrible thing to do to somebody.
Yeah, I agree, Nick. Like, while 1984 was an extreme case of a government controlling its citizens, I think that any government is capable of, like, similar actions. And to your point, Leo, about the pro-social behaviors of dominance and control, I think that while the article had definitely some facts in it, I think that power corrupts individuals. So the control that they'll exercise will often have negative consequences. In that same dominance behavioral system article, the study finds that, quote unquote, dominance coupled with hostility can involve antisocial strategies for taking resources and threatening subordinates, such as manipulative behavior, intimidation, and social or physical aggression. These behaviors were seen in 1984 and in real life, like in North Korea, where the government essentially has total control over its citizens. These negative aspects of control are all too apparent. And here's the thing for me. While we all like to believe that our government is good-natured, I don't know if that's really the case.
Whoa there, Michael. Are you taking a shot at our own government, mate? Are you saying our current government is not Gucci at the moment, bruh?
Well, I don't know if I'm saying exactly that. But just as Orwell included in 1984, we know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. The dominance behavioral system article also spoke on the human instinct to exert power and dominance over others. In our current society, I see the heavy encouragement of people to transfer more and more of their lives online. Now that the majority of media sources are online as well, an increasing amount of the information we both give and receive is easily manipulatable. Fake news and social media algorithms are examples of people in power manipulating our reality.
Well, with that in mind and how reality nowadays is so easily accessible, Mikey, couldn't we use virtual reality to our advantage? I mean, think about it. If what you are saying, Michael, is true about how human instinct is to exert power and dominance, shouldn't we use this false sense of reality in VR to our advantage for society? Like, I mean, now that I think about it, we could turn it into something along the lines of the 2-minute hate part of the book in 1984. Just how Winston mentioned, no matter what, within 30 seconds, everyone was joining in on the 2-minute hate thing. With the same concept, I believe we incorporate VR to society daily or on a similar basis. I think this could lead to a drop in crime and corruption altogether. Everyone would have time to relinquish any and all hate and dominance they have and release in any way they would like in a VR setting. The way that technology nowadays is advancing in an exponential way, I believe this VR setting will come sooner than people think. I mean, come on. Zuckerberg already announced his metaverse.
Okay, I agree with the idea that our current society has a lot of control and manipulation in it to allow us to have the freedoms that we have, but it's not in a larger scale as 1984 has it. And hopefully it never gets to that scale. But I can understand how you can say that there is an outline of control and manipulation that is more or less helping our society grow. The social construct of the world also helps define what is good and what is bad, and how we think, how we kind of think of the words manipulation and control is something based off of is relatively bad. But your idea about the 2-minute hate and virtual reality is interesting.
Yeah, honestly, guys, to be honest, it's hard for me to accept that control can have a beneficial use in society. I think this is because, I think that one's privacy is really important, and to exert full control in a utopian sense, one's individuality would be violated. I still think manipulation by the government is a negative thing that should not exist, but I do see the positive uses of control. Plus, your idea about 2-minute hate and virtual reality is pretty cool, Leo. I think it could be applied in our society.
Look, guys, at the end of the day, controlling people will always be wrong. What I am implying is not the physical control of people, but rather controlling what they can and cannot do through influence of the government. If the government were to use their power for good, with dominance coupled with warmth, as mentioned earlier, then society would be as close to utopia as it has ever been before. North Korea is literally a perfect example of what not to do.
Yeah, I agree. 1984 is a pretty good book with interesting psychological warfare about control and how it works. It was pretty fun understanding and learning different viewpoints of the same situation.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Until then, eat a sandwich and keep an extra eye on your kids.